o'clock. Call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Harlan here.
Karen here.
Jerry here.
Kathy here. John here.
Get a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Harlan.
Karen and I.
Jerry, aye.
Kathy here. John.
Wastewater treatment facility, 90% review project plans.
Alright. I'll stand up top just to step down too. I sent an agenda to you guys real quick. I don't know if you have that on your tablets. Just wanted to cover a few things tonight. Kind of the biggest elephant in the room is that large set of documents over there. We've got the 90% designed to you guys now, so that includes the full project manual, which includes the bidding documents, so the documents that we're going to be using when we go out to contractors for bids. So it gives them instructions and various other things on how to submit a bid and when and where. We haven't set those dates yet, but that at least that forms for those are in there. It has the agreement, which is the actual contract that you'll have between the constructor and the city. So it's a general considerations type document. Supplemental conditions that cover insurance, bonding, various other things that we need. And then it also includes what is required by SRF for that loan funding program and what's required by the US DOC EDA Equal for Your grants. So those things are included in that agreement, or that portion of the documents as well. One of the other things that are in there, what we call it front-end documents, which is basically how we administer it. It covers things like temporary utilities, notifications, how the contractor submits shop drawings and things like that to us, the engineer, during construction to make sure that they're procuring the right materials and the right equipment for the project. And then we have the technical specifications, which is the major equipment, the materials, various other components of the project. Gives verbal or verbiage type instructions on how to procure, how to obtain that, how it ships. Material requirements for the pieces of equipment, and installation requirements as well that don't go on the drawings. And then finally, another part of that is going to be the reference documents, which are previously constructed projects, drawings, and things of that nature that the contractor may find useful for construction of this project, and also like the soil borings that we've done on site. The lagoon sludge survey that's been done on the existing lagoons to figure out how much sludge needs to be removed from those as part of the demolition, various things of that nature. And then we have the drawings, which is the larger 11 by 17 set of plans that's over there. That's the layout of the equipment, the layout of the site, the buildings, the details, how the architecture is constructed, the structures are reinforced, things of that nature. So that is the accumulation of that preliminary design memo that we prepared and submitted to you guys with like about 30 drawings. It's now increased to about 150 drawings detailing those pieces out, and about 1,200 pages of writing for all the other stuff. So I expect you guys to review that this weekend and get me any comments probably next Wednesday. I think it's probably a good day to get all that back. But really, this is an opportunity for me to put something in front of you that's reviewable in a time frame, actually, before it goes out to the US DOC, because they're going to review it, and also the Department of Natural Resources, because they're going to review it. You're going to get permits from various entities. This gives you a heads up of looking for any key components that you may be interested in seeing, primarily more Dean and Matt looking at some of those things, but it gives you, the city, an opportunity to look at those contract documents as well, and kind of absorb anything that you've previously experienced in the past or learned from, see how it's, what kind of, the way you may be receiving bids, what kind of information you're going to be getting back, and just see if there's anything you need to add to that, or if you want to verify with me that it's actually in there, I can take a phone call too. It's just more of it's an opportunity to do this before it's kind of already off to some regulatory agency where it takes a lot more effort to fix some of that stuff. So it's paper, and there's electronic versions as well that I've given to Karen, so she'll have that available too. I know it's kind of hard. It's really hard to absorb some of this stuff sometimes when you're looking at a computer screen, so we've got some hard copies there for you as well. Some other project update news we have. Just in general, we're about 12 months into the monthly progress meetings. And since the time we met for the 60% review, we've had meetings that covered topics on the electrical power from the utility and distribution around the site. Got focused on that. We've covered some demolition topics and lagoon sludge removal as part of that committee meetings. And then previously this month, we actually went in and we talked a little bit about the bidding and the contract documents. We had ECIA was a part of that meeting, and they're going to be providing any comments that they have too as well from the perspective of that grant administrator to make sure that we've covered everything that they are going to need within the project to make sure they can administer those grant funds. Another good piece of news is that Iowa SRF has completed their environmental review of the site, so that's part of the funding that's required for both the SRF loan and the DOC EDA money. They need to complete an environmental review of the project, so SRF is in this case leading that. They're completing their environmental review first. They've proceeded with issuing a FONSI, which is a finding of no significant impact, which is a good thing. But basically the next step on that is the city is, I think you've already published the public notice for the public hearing that you're going to have at the January 14th meeting. So there's a public hearing that you'll be going through then just to make sure if there's any comments from the public about the environmental impact of this project that they're received. So following that issuance of that FONSI, then DOC will use that environmental review as well to complete their environmental review, and then everything's on track, which is a good thing. So I need to get too deep in there. And then the last little piece is thank goodness we've finished at least, I think, communicating back any comments that DNR had on that 60%. So everything you see in there at least covers the comments that DNR has given us so far in any technical aspects of the design. So hopefully they're not going to be having any more significant, they wouldn't have any more significant comments that would change the character of the project from what was issued at 60%. So all is going well. As far as scope, so as this project is developed, we've done a couple of things. Obviously, we changed the site a couple months ago. We've done what we need to do to get that up to date. There's a few other things that we've brought into the project too, is we've brought utility water piping into the site, which is actually a lot easier now since it's right there where you actually have utility water piping, so that's not a huge thing. We've added the storage pad for dewatering sludge. Decided to do that without a cover on it, so that's been added. And then we recently talked about adding a dump station for the vacuum trucks. This is just going to be a small concrete pad where basically if you have a generator truck coming to town to clean the sanitary sewers out, they'll be able to take that tank, the 1,000-gallon tank or whatever they have on that truck, and be able to dump that at the site at the location so it's not spilling all over the ground or directly into a tank and causing a mess. And then we're also including within that set, and it's actually not in there at this time, but I'm actually getting this finalized right now, is the secondary clarifiers. We're putting in a bid alternate to have some sidewalls and a dome cover on those. So at bid opening, if the bids come in and they're lower than what you guys have a threshold for the project, and they have this alternate in here that says, if you want, you can add this to the project. We can look at including that in the project at that time. So those are the things that are kind of in there just to be aware of over time.
Will that be bid alternate one?
Yeah, we don't have any other bid alternates, which is good, because we do have to do them sequentially, so you'd have to prioritize if you wanted something else. So that's actually pretty nice that we've gone out that far. Do you have any questions about any of that right now? Before I move on? I don't need to keep talking. As far as schedule, this is I've condensed this schedule a little bit just because it was getting about 2 pages. So I decided to cut a bunch of stuff out that wasn't really, didn't really need to share that, like, we've come this far in business, but we have come a long way. So we're about halfway down the page right now to get to tonight, which is the 90% review meeting. We're really close to being able to say at the end of January, we're going to have the 100% design ready to you guys. So that's really what I'm talking about in terms of timeline for being able to come back with some comments or anything else like that. If you've got something that you find, we'd like to get it incorporated 100% before it goes off to that regulatory review. That's kind of our deadline, is that last week of January. It doesn't mean we can't get it incorporated, it just means that's another deliverable or that's going to go out and get reviewed by other people at that time. And then based on a meeting that would happen after that, where the council would accept those documents to be submitted to DNR and submitted to DOC. Hopefully we'd be able to get that approval at that February meeting, and then following that we basically affix our signatures and our certifications to the documents and make prints and send them off to DNR and DOC at that time and get their review process started. And then we're hoping, what I've got here in italics is kind of basically design is complete at that point. So these are the next steps. So I wanted you guys to see where we are timeline on the overall scope of the project once we're done with that, kind of submitting those certified documents to the agencies. So we've got in the late March timeframe, we're going to be sitting back here again and saying, let's set bid dates, because hopefully by then we're pretty well knowing whether or not we've got approval for the permits, and if there's any last minute changes that we need to make, we can choose to do them by addenda, or if we reissue drawings or whatnot. So we'll be able to kind of start setting those dates, and then have a May bid opening. So that's when the actual contractors would submit those documents to us, and we sit here and we go open up the folders, read off the bids, and then have an award for that probably that second meeting in May. Then hopefully we're looking at that June time frame to be able to have a pre-con type meeting. So we've had that bid award, gone through the paperwork necessary to actually finalize that award, sit down with the contractor and sign off on all the agreements, have them basically get started at that point. We're not going to see earth moving, obviously, right away. What we're likely going to see is a lot of administrative tasks that are going to be happening between offices. So we're going to see submittals for major pieces of equipment. We're going to see plans coming through with what's the contractor's schedule for getting everything done. So we'll likely see some work being done in the latter part of 2020, but it's not going to be a lot of major stuff like you would. It's not going to be a wholesale project. I'm not anticipating that happening quite yet because the site's not going to be ready. But we would expect that by the time you get into the latter half of 2021, that everything would be built and we'd be ready to start asking, the contractor would be ready to start asking, okay, we've got all this equipment installed. We've gone through our startup procedures. We are ready to initiate treatment at this new facility. So that would be the goal, is to have that done by the end of 2021 or latter half of 2021. And once that is actually started up and operational, then they would start the demolition of the existing facility over the next several months. And that's not really going to take several months, but there is a sludge removal process that's going to take place that, depending on how the timeline works, they may be able to do that right away, or they may have to dredge that material, leave it on the embankments and let it dry out over a period of 12 to 16 months to achieve the dryness they want before they dispose of it. So all in all, we're looking at 2022 for that final completion of the whole project, and we have some additional services for you guys after that. Factory be drawing up the kind of the as-built conformity construction record drawings. We'd be writing that O&M manual. All that stuff would be going on in that latter half of that time frame too. So that's the schedule, and hopefully everything will be going smoothly, and Matt will love it. The team will be really happy, and we'll have another meeting on my birthday. Great, I'll bring more cupcakes. So just just short-term upcoming deliverables. We've got that January meeting. It's probably going to be our last kind of like progress, what we call that progress meeting, where we have topic-based discussions. So that's going to cover what I mentioned, where the front-end documents, where it's basically how are we administering the project, some of those very site-specific things. And we'll be given a status report too on the 100% submittal. So hopefully at that time, if I haven't received any comments from you guys, so this is like on the 16th of January, I'll be really soliciting them for me at that meeting as well. So it'll be an opportunity for me to get in front of you guys again. So, and then for the February meeting, obviously we'd be looking at that 100%. Ready to go. So I had on this agenda just the design review of the 90% set, but I think it's a pretty large document. I wouldn't know what to highlight that would really capture your attention, so I'm not going to steal 15 minutes of your life going through a bunch of that stuff unless you guys have specific concerns or comments that you wanted to go through.
I have one question on that land application where you take the sludge out of lagoons for 12 to 16 months. What's the, obviously it's going to smell. What is it going to be pretty?
So what that process, what we're looking at right now, and it's not fully decided yet because we're still trying to figure out where to go with it. But where we're currently at with it is that the hauler would actually dredge out the material in the lagoons, and they pump it into, mix it with a bit of polymer to make it, to kind of let it dry and coagulate so the water drops out. They pump it into these things called geo bags, which are basically just giant geotextile tubes. And so that water then slowly seeps out. There really isn't it's not a gigantic smell associated with that. It's going to be that earthy, musty smell that you have of sludge. It's not going to be like a raw manure like a farmer would necessarily have. It's not going to have that high odor value to it. It's still going to smell, but it's going to be more along the musty line than it is going to be the high ammonia smell. So that process is hopefully not going to take too long, but then it just basically just sits and it dries out over time. Eventually after the thing dries out, they cut open the bags and then they put a front end loader and they just start loading it in the trucks and then they go out. They take it out that way. I can get more into the process, but
No, that's not a question I had.
you guys are really gonna let me off. All right.
Have you guys, have you had a chance to look at any of this stuff prior to this, or
As far as the drawing, we reviewed part of it, yeah.
any questions or concerns or issues that you have at this point?
Not yet, but I mean, obviously we need to look at it.
Yeah. So again, we have our monthly meetings where we kind of look at stuff as we go. So I assume we're gonna have a nice little sit down meeting here pretty soon too, and kind of go over some specifics, last minute stuff too.
So is that the only difference between 90% and 100% plans, or what?
No, so this is there's still about there's probably 3 or 4 specs that aren't in there yet, just because they didn't quite make the cut. They're getting edited enough that I just felt like putting them in. So it's pretty close. The majority of it's there, but there's still little things that are missing. There's still little things that obviously aren't coordinated across. If there's 4 specs that reference something, it might not be there quite yet.
Another question. Was Dyersville an EDA project?
Dyersville was an EDA project.
So, and this might be a Mac question. Do you have any clue how the EDA works on our end, on the money end? Is it like SRF, you submit, they reimburse through the whole process?
I think they're at the tail end. It's not the plan.
Yeah, yeah, it's probably a better question for ECIA to answer. My impression of it has always been that they apply for the money at the same time. Like so you're paying the contractor, but then PCIA will fill out forms for you to get basically paid by SRF, paid by DEA, or say be a pass-through or something like that. And there may be a little bit of delay on that money, but I think it all is applied for at the same time, but it's also like, so your EDA money is a percentage.
Right.
So that has to be matched, and there's other things that they have to do. So I think there's separate checks that go to the contractor, and they might be separate by a little bit, but I think at a certain point, you've used up all the EDA money, and then that's just done.
SRF.
And then it's just SRF.
It's like we have to, yeah, we have to pay up until they put this stuff.
Alright.
Any other questions?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Administration claims list.
Do we need to make a motion on that 90% approval? Eldon?
There's no.
There is no motion
No,
required.
I don't need a formal approval, I just wanted to have a meeting and present it to you guys.
Okay.
The claims list.
Do we need a motion? I'll make a motion to approve the claims list.
A second. Jerry, aye. Next is resolution amending resolution 2019-33, a resolution setting salaries, wages for appointed officers, employees in City of Peosta, fiscal year 20.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2019-33, setting salaries and wages for appointed officers and employees of the city of Peosta for fiscal year 2020.
I'll second.
Jerry, aye.
Kathy, aye.
Other. Citizen comment? No? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Jerry, aye.
Kathy, aye.
John, aye.